Hey YouTube, I just wanted to do a quick video about some definitions that people get kind of confused on. And there's just three words: perennial, annual, and biennial. An annual is a plant that completes its life cycle in 1 year. A biennial is a plant that completes its life cycle in 2 years. So, for an example, like onions. Onions will grow for a season, they'll die down, they'll grow for another season, and then they'll produce their flowers, and then they'll seed. And a perennial is a plant that will come back year after year after year. Now, some plants are perennials, but some people grow them like annuals because they won't survive their winters or they won't survive their summers and they'll die off. But if you can properly care for some of these plants, like pepper plants, for example, do not do well as in the cold quite often. So a lot of people, depending on your horticultural zone, grow pepper plants as if they are annuals. They grow them, they die in the winter, you pull them out, replant. Totally nothing wrong with that. But if you have a greenhouse or have a way to keep plants warm, be that hoops or bringing them inside or whatever, you might want to look into that, just because you might be able to keep the same pepper plant going for 3 or 4 years. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was horticultural zones. Now, horticultural zones really only apply when you're talking about perennials. Here in the US, it's the USDA that determined our horticultural zones, but most of the world follows the same way of determining them. They look at the coldest temperature that your winter gets, and they base your horticultural zone on that. So like here in Houston, where I am, I'm 9A. That's, so plants that don't do well with cold temperatures tend to do great here. The lower your horticultural zone is, the colder your winters get. In England, it's the Royal Horticultural Society who determine theirs. Australia has a horticultural zone. Here in the US, the most common way to find it is just Google like horticultural zones. You'll put in your zip code, and then boom, they'll tell you. The other thing you need to know is your first and last frost date. And you need to know this because it will give you your growing season. Like here in Texas, my last frost date is like late December 20th or something is my first frost date. My last frost date is like February 20th. So my growing season is from late February all the way until late December. It's like a 300 and some day growing season. So I'm quite lucky in that regard that I don't have to be concerned so much about how long it takes plants to grow. But if you're in a different zone, like I think it's a zone like 5A, the growing season is where this one particular gardener lives. It's like 130 days. That's his growing season. That's all it is. So he needs to look at his seed packets, and he needs to pay attention, and it might involve starting seeds inside, to get those extra times. He has these hoops that keeps the heat in, so that allows him to put transplants out a bit earlier, and it allows them to grow for a little bit longer at both ends of the season. So that's definitely something that you need to look into. So in review, if you want to start gardening, the first kind of bare bones you need to know is your horticultural zone, your first frost date, your last frost date, and you need to understand the difference in annuals, perennials, and biennials. And my suggestion would be start off with a mixture of both if you can. I don't have the room in my beds, so I did plant some onions. I probably will not let those onions go to seed. I'm going to treat all my plants as annuals, just because I need the space to grow other plants. But if you have the room, you know, obviously my suggestion is if you have a bigger permanent garden, honestly, I would do as many perennials as you can, just because they're less work once they're in. So any food that you like that is a perennial, go for it. So thanks for watching, and good luck with whatever you decide to grow.